Today we're going to go over purchasing a camera. There are tons of cameras out there, and what my goal is to narrow that down for you and to make an informed decision. There's several steps that you want to think about. And the first step in purchasing a camera are the questions that you need to ask yourself. What are you going to use the camera for? Are you going to be using the camera for social media, which is very popular right now? Is the camera for a specific class? If it's for a class, is it just going to be used for one time? Like what happens with my mother's treadmill? It's just used to store things. And is this what's going to happen to your camera at the end of a course? Or are you looking for a specific hobby? Or are you upgrading from another camera that you had before? So all these questions you want to ask. Another question is, where will the photographs be shown when it's done? Are you going to be printing your photos the size of a billboard? Or are you going to maybe make an occasional 8x10 picture for a gift for your mother on Christmas time? And some of you may not even print any of these pictures, and they may go directly to social media. The other question is, how much money are you willing to spend? What is your budget? What does your budget look like? And what type of shooting are you going to be doing? Are you going to be doing landscapes, sports photography? Are you going to be doing YouTube videos? Are you going to be doing weddings or real estate images? Do you need to have a camera that also does video? Because you're going to be multi-purposing camera. Something to think about. If you're going to be buying a camera for video, you want something that shoots 1280 by 720 resolution or better, preferably a 1920 by a 1080. Now that's for a multi-use camera. Second question that you want to ask yourself, is this camera for a photography class, which I hinted to earlier? And if it's for a class, and specifically an introductory class, we need to know the requirements for that specific class. The first one is it has a manual shutter speed control. And we're looking at the dial here for a Canon and a Nikon. They have different icons, but for both of them, it's an M for manual control. Here's another camera with the manual mode. So we're looking for the M dial. Here's another M on a Nikon D3200. The second requirement is it has an adjustable f-stop. And so we're looking at this chart, which we're going to refer to quite a bit. An adjustable f-stop is on the top part of our chart, also known as the aperture. In this chart, we have an f-stop from f32, from f1.4, and the f-stop controls your depth of field. And here is another example of different f-stops from Wilderness Shot. Also from Wilderness Shot, Brian, we have from f2.8 to f32, and we can see the difference in the depth of field. The next item is your shutter speed, and your shutter speed controls the motion. We can see here in the second part of our chart, fast shutter speed at 1/1000, a slow shutter speed at 1/2. And then we can see here from Nathan Salt's photograph, where the man on the moped is sharp, but the background is blurry, and that is controlled by your shutter speed. Or here in Rocha's photograph, where you can see the camera floating in the air And he was able to capture that by controlling the shutter speed. The next item that we need to think about is your ISO. The ISO on this chart is represented on the bottom row. The smaller the ISO, the less pixeled the image will be, or the lower the sensitivity, the less amount of light is needed to enter the camera to expose the image. Now, in digital cameras, the ISO is a direct reference to film. So if you have a low ISO number at 100, you're going to see little grain, or in digital cameras, little pixelation. But look at the ISO at 25,600 right here on the end. See how pixeled it is. Let's get another comparison from ISO 100 to ISO 6400 from Creative Raw. Another comparison is where the ISO is 100 to 800. Now, this is just showing the different variations or different ISO numbers they have on the camera. So it's really important to understand and how to control your ISO, and that you can change your ISO on your camera. The third option is your budget. How much money do you have and are willing to spend on your camera? The fourth step is if you're going to be buying new or used. Now, obviously, this camera's had a hard life, but but the price of the camera is really important. And the places that you can buy used cameras are, for instance, at B&H Photography in New York, Adorama as well. But take a look at your local camera store. Walk into the camera store or give them a call and ask them if they have used cameras. Also to see if they have discounts for if you're a student. The fifth step is the type of cameras. There's so many different types of cameras out there. You have to know what they are. So first, and the most popular, is your DSLR. And the DSLR is a digital lens reflex camera where it has actually a mirror inside. And it's a single lens reflex camera, and it combines the optics and the mechanisms of the single lens reflex camera with the digital imaging sensor. The reflex design scheme is the primary difference between DSLR and other digital cameras. Now, there's several advantages of a DSLR. It has really good image quality. And you also have a variety of lenses, so zoom lenses. And if you decide to invest in other lenses further down the line, you can build on your system. So it's very flexible, a very flexible system. Also, the speed. The DSLRs are fast to focus, meaning your camera will lock in on the subject quickly and offer fast shutter speeds. The pros, it's good in low light, it's good shallow focus effects, and lots of creative controls. The cons, the sound recording can be awkward. Now, if you're trying to multi-use the use of a camera and want to also record video, you need to do your research and to see what kind of video quality you're going to have, if that's important to you. It's kind of hard and, kind of awkward to hold. Some image quality problems in some situations. So you want to do research on what type of photos you're going to be using, or what type of photos you're going to be taking. And also it has a limited recording time. If you need to record something in video, perhaps you might want to, I would recommend getting a dedicated video camera. Another viable option are mirrorless cameras. The advantage of a mirrorless camera is they're lightweight. They can fit in your pocket, and think of it, think 3 or 4 times the thickness of an iPhone, or roughly the same weight. Now, I have a mirrorless camera, and my mirrorless weighs about the same weight as my cell phone. And my mirrorless camera, because my cell phone is so large, is even smaller than my cell phone. But here's a comparison from Signal by Sony, the DSLR and a mirrorless camera, the difference in size. The noise, it doesn't have a mirror in the camera, so you don't hear the shutter popping off and on. So that's a good quality. The image quality has always, the image quality, well, not as the same as a DSLR, but that was, I believe, something that was in the past. The mirrorless cameras are really coming up there with the DSLRs. So the quality is almost the same. The flexibility. Now, some of the mirrorless cameras, you can add lenses to them and you can build on that system. But some of the other mirrorless cameras cannot. So you want to make sure you understand what you're going to be getting. Action camera. Now, if you're taking an introductory to photography class, the action cameras will not work for you. But they're great for action and adventures. So like this photograph from which magazine, super awesome and amazing. They're small, tough, and robust. But there's no viewfinder. It has basic sound. It's good for sports and outdoor activity and science experiments and for documentary. The sixth item. The digital zoom. You'll see this in advertisements for cameras. 200 times digital zoom. It sounds great, but it's just a way of electronically blowing up the middle of the image. It makes the picture quality worse. So don't use it. Think of optical zoom. So let's take a close-up photo of this zebra. You can see on the left with the digital zoom and the optical zoom. The megapixels. If you recall earlier in this video, I asked, what are you going to use the camera for? Are you doing billboards? Are you doing 8x10s? Are you just going to do a 4x6? Now, the larger the megapixels, the more dynamic range you're going to have in your photograph, and the larger the sensor will be. Personally, I feel I would go with the largest megapixels available that you can afford. It's going to last you a little bit longer and your camera will be able to stretch in time. But at the same time, I want you to realize a lot of these cameras will only are designed to last for a couple of years because technology is constantly always improving. So a camera body, generally about 2 to 3 years before you're going to upgrade. So these are the items that I want you to think about when purchasing a camera, and these 6 factors. Thank you so much.